All right, thanks everybody for joining us for SyncCon Show and Tell this week. We've got AH or Alan. He's going to talk to us about some of the awesome things he's been doing to build and make with 3D printing, laser cutting, plasma cutting, welding, whatever, all the things. He's done some pretty awesome things, be it designing new parts and making them and assembling them. And more than that, he uses these parts to do fun things. So I'm going to stop talking, give Alan a minute to introduce himself, and he can start talking and tell a little bit about what's going on.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Pull up. I got a slideshow. So Matt figured out a way to get me to talk in front of people, and that's by talking about stuff that I think are fun. And feel free to jump in with any questions or anything. But he asked me specifically to talk about Fusion 360 and how I've used that with 3D printers and CNC plasma tables to make some stuff. And um, I've been playing with 3D printers for a few years now. The first time I had exposure to one was a work 3D printer, and after, downloading a few Christmas ornaments on Thingiverse and printing those out, it was kind of novel, but not really that cool. And then, oh, this is me, member of DC 435, work for Utah State. My handle is super original. It's a phonetic spelling of AH, which is my initials, Alan Hill, also known as Al Hill. Call me whatever. I'm also on the Yushi assessment team and on again, off again volunteer in the hardware hacking labs at St. Con. But this was kind of what kicked off for me my whole adventure with 3D printing and stuff. I found this commercial van at Utah State surplus. Nobody bid on it for the minimum bid, so I went in and gave a little bit lower ball offer than that, and they accepted it, wanted it off their lot, and so I bought it. Took it home, and my boys and I stripped it out. It was full of toolboxes and had a big wall partition. We cut some windows in it, put a fan in it, put some solar panels on it, did a whole bunch of LED electrical stuff, put some better wheels and tires on it, and a little bit of bed liner around the bottom, and off we went. And the reason we bought it is so we could do stuff like this. We that van has been up to Canada, Banff, and did a bunch of national parks up there. It's been to California. I drove across country to Florida a couple years ago, and we hit 17 states there and back. I like to stuff it full of dirt bikes or mountain bikes or paddle boards or whatever, and go out and be outside. That's kind of our favorite thing. So I also like to be really comfortable when I'm camping. So I put a heater in it and really nice mattresses and a bunch of solar battery stuff to run electronics and sleep machines and all that stuff. And it's really actually really comfortable to sleep in. When I first started doing the things with the 3D printing, it was pretty simple. I just wanted some stuff to look good, but add functionality. Like here, I've got an iPad mounted to the windshield for running Waze or audio, Spotify, whatever, and I just wanted some power and audio that was routed back down to my sound system. So just a real simple deal there. You can kind of see over here a bunch of the different parts that we worked through. This was kind of fun. I wanted the door lights still to work. When we lost the factory lights, we pulled those out. They were old, ancient, regular incandescent, little spring-loaded bulbs. So we ripped all those out. Well, ripped all one of those out and put all these little LED pucks. I was looking at LED lighting. I'm like, geez, you can buy these little 12 volt with embedded resistor um, LEDs, and I wanted them kind of to point down. So spent a little time learning how to do this in Fusion 360. Soldered them up in the back with little connectors. Filled it with a bunch of hot glue and put them on a switch so that I can either turn them on individually or set them to the other side, and the doors will turn them on. So kind of a fun blue light that's run off the door, the house door system. So I wanted to use the sun visor mounts on the Sprinter were pretty bomb proof, and so I repurposed them to hold up a shelf above the our heads so that we can put a bunch of pillows and blankets and stuff up there. But then I had these big, ugly metal things that were sticking out. So I cut those off, and you can see I just used some wire tie um, braces to hold up the shelf. But I didn't want that metal thing sticking on there, so just real simple. 3D printed some caps for the metal, and then also some spacers to get the new junkyard sun visors to fit and work in there.
Sure.
What's that?
So those are
So
the gray piece is the original visor mount, and then you replaced the visor, or did you just use the mounting
I
holes to put your own
I,
piece
I
into?
ripped out and threw away the old visors, and then I cut off the metal piece, and then just used these little bracket things there to hold the shelf up.
All right.
I think Company Kid Mike needs to mute. Anyway, so also I wanted a reverse camera because it's a big van, no back windows. So I bought a $12 reverse camera off of eBay, printed out a little housing, and bolted it right to the tall third light. Did some underbed lighting, just a whole bunch of little projects, and I
Underbed
don't know
meaning the
why.
back bed.
Yeah, I think I've got a picture of that, but yeah. So when this bed is in there, those lights are just kind of underneath on the sidewall. Um, so I don't know why. I think back in the day when I was looking for, I think I did some Google searches to see how people made their own 3D designs, and came across Fusion 360 made by Autodesk, and saw that we could get an education license, and that's what turned me onto that. And
And there's a
since
free
then, they've
license for
changed
other
it.
people too, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that since then, like just in the last couple of years, they've created a new hobby license, so anybody can get a hobby license to be able to use Fusion 360. The only thing I've played around with the hobby license, it only lets you have like 10 or so active projects in their cloud storage, which just means you need to like set one to inactive to be able to work on other ones. So you just need to manage your inventory a little bit. And I think they neuter some of the manufacturing tools, but I'm not sure about that. But I was looking last night, like what alternatives to Fusion 360 were, and one that I heard about a while ago, but it wasn't available when I heard about it, was Onshape, and I think that was like one of the old guys from SolidWorks uh, kicked over and started creating this Onshape, and I started playing around with that. That's all in the web browser, and seems pretty responsive, pretty fast. I think I'm going to take a harder look at that. Some people use SketchUp. There's also an OpenSCAD, open source tool that I think you could do a lot of this same stuff. I've never used any of that though.
Have you used FreeCAD at
Um,
all?
Sorry, what was that?
Have you used FreeCAD at all?
No, I haven't. Have you used that, Jonathan?
Uh, I've tried. I'm still new to all this, so I don't. Anyway, yeah,
Is
One thing that's
I'm not any good.
OpenSCAD the one that you define it all mathematically, you don't draw it out, you write the equations to draw it?
I'm not even sure on that. I've used OpenSCAD once when I downloaded the heater meter box. Like you had to put the file in there and tell it which options, and then it would generate it for whichever version you got. So that's the only time I've ever launched that. But definitely worth looking at some of this other stuff, especially I think I'm definitely going to look at that Onshape. Looks pretty cool. So this was one of the biggest challenges that I ran into. Mercedes, they sell these switches. You can buy, they're kind of a weird oval switch. Um, they're like between 14 and 18 bucks a switch. And I wanted a bunch of switches in there for not only the dash, but each door entry. And so I was like, well, let's just cut that whole factory crap out of there and make our own little dashboards. So we did, and you can see I kind of had to get creative. There, it look at first it looks like just a square with, um, certain radius corners, but they were actually different. It took me a few tries to get the pattern right to fit in perfectly. And then also, you can see over here on this left picture, I tried to 3D print a RAM mount for my phone holder, and that worked for a while, and then I broke it. Then I 3D printed another one. It worked for a while, and I broke it. So then I gave up and went to completely redesigned it so it just like had a hex opening that you could put an actual RAM mount down into, and that's been bomb proof ever since. So that was kind of a fun challenge. Each one of these buttons runs different LED lights, or actually got a couple buttons that will turn on my reverse camera and reverse lights, and I I've got a button dedicated to front like LED bar, but I haven't installed that yet, so it's all wired for it. And then I've got my S bar diesel heater thermostat and controller is right there, and then added some USB plugs to charge phones and various devices.
So what um, type of material are you printing that kind of thing out
Well,
of?
yeah, when I first started doing this several years ago, I did a lot of it in ABS. Since then, like I'm pretty sure this is ABS right here, but my third revision of this RAM mount was done in PETG. And I really liked PETG for a lot of years, but just recently I bought a spool of carbon fiber polycarbonate, and I'm really enjoying printing with that. They seem pretty sturdy. The prints are coming out good. I don't have anything in my van with that, but I've just started printing some things on that.
What are the temp requirements of that PC filament?
About 250 is what I'm printing out, and my
So it's
bed I
similar
think is.
to,
Say that again.
it's similar to PETG.
Yeah, yeah. I'm printing my PTG a little bit cooler, like 235, 240. And I had to bump it up a little bit for the polycarbonate. This was kind of a fun deal here. I don't know anybody that had done this before, or at least I couldn't find anybody. But I found these latching relays. So I bought this little latching relay board from China for like $10. But what this allowed me to do is I ran 7 conductor sprinkler wire to all the places I wanted to be able to control my lights. So in my dash and by my side door and by my back door, I put these little button panels. And what I do with the 7 conductors is I run 5 volts hot down one of the conductors, and then string that through all the switches, and then the switch will return a 5 volt um, pulse back to they're momentary switches. So when I hit it, it'll send 5 volts back to the latching relay board, which will toggle the relay on or off. So that way I can turn on or off my lights from any door or my dash in the van, which I thought was pretty clever and was really fun to figure out. And then the other piece that I figured out after the fact was, why don't I just power the whole board? I wanted to be able to turn them all off with one button, and so I wired the last relay as normally closed, and I powered the board from the relay itself. And so, like, as it's normally closed, the board's powered, all the switches are working. But if I hit that last button, it opens that relay, disconnects the power to the board, resets everything, and all the lights turn off. So, kind of thought that was a fun deal. Um,
How long did you spend figuring that one out?
that was one of those things that woke me up at 3 in the morning. I'm like, I wonder if you could do this. Didn't know if it was possible. Went and you know set it all up on a bench, and lo and behold, it worked. So I don't know.
Is that 12 volt, just a cigarette lighter?
What's that?
Is that 12 volt there, just a cigarette lighter?
Yeah, with the power outlet next to it. And I have so on that one, I wanted it to be kind of universal. On the other side, I used Anderson power poles I have a couple of 12-volt source thing or connectors on the wall on the other side. So after getting comfortable with Fusion 360 and making all these 3D parts, I had a buddy that has a CNC plasma table. He had a little 4-foot one in his garage, and then he's since got a big 5 by 10 foot one in his shop. But he's pretty much given me access to use that whenever I want, and so I started using some of the stuff I learned in Fusion 360 to build metal parts. So like these snowboard ski racks, just designed all those in Fusion 360, and then went to his shop, cut them out of metal, bent them up, welded them together. Here I was trying to learn how to TIG weld with an old Eastwood TIG welder, and that was a pain. I have a MIG welder, but I still would like to. I need to spend a lot more time learning how to TIG weld. That stuff's hard for me. But down here, some motorcycle chocks that kind of you can bolt them in anywhere along these rails. This OmniTrack or L-Track, and put your motorcycles in. This was kind of I don't know. I was feeling pretty confident in Fusion 360 at this point, so I built a whole chair swivel. And that's another thing that woke me up at like 2 in the morning. Like, what's bomb-proof that you can use to swivel seats back and forth? And I thought, well, I can go on eBay and buy some Honda Civic bearing, like wheel bearings, some universal bearings. And so I did. I bought some cheap bearings and made this mount so it goes into the OmniTrack, and then you can swivel those back and forth. And I put a little, like a 1-minute video of what it is. So this is my buddy's home little 2-foot by 4-foot CNC plasma table with a manual Z height. Then went over. Like in this project, I learned how to do a circular pattern in Fusion 360 to get the bolt pattern right for the wheel bearings. Welded up the mounts, and these seats I found on eBay. Some guy would take brand new Toyota Siennas and pull the middle seats out to convert them to wheelchair vans. And so you used to be able to get these really nice seats with the seat belts integrated into the seat itself, and a really nice footrest and everything. So that was kind of fun to build. And like when we go on a family road trip, my boys are both big enough to drive, so we kind of fight on who gets to sit in the back and put their feet up.
It's not really a fight, though, is
it? Yeah, no, not really. So here's another like non-van project. But my dad gave my son a rooftop box and some bars, but they were from a Mini, and he's got an Audi wagon, and they didn't fit. So, the right thing is to go find the right mounts and buy them and set it up correctly. But we never do the right thing. So we went to Ace Hardware and bought some U-bolts and got the drill out and just U-bolted them to his factory racks. But then it looked really like we did it ourselves. So we took a couple pictures, threw some dimensions in Fusion 360, and printed us up some little caps, and now he's not embarrassed to drive around.
So when you prototype these and do stuff like that, how many? Like I see several iterations there. How many times does it take, and is the number of tries it takes per print change as you get better at it?
I think it does get a little better. I think that particular project, it took 2 or 3, well, 3 or 4 actually, because like one of the bars didn't fit, like the rails on the top of the roof kind of spread out as it got forward, so we kind of had to change them so that they weren't identical, and one of them had to be a lot longer. So yeah, it depends on how complex it is
But like
you
you talked earlier about the first print for your van, that spacer that you put all the switches in. How many tries did it take you to get that one right?
That one, like I was still pretty heavy into my learning curve for Fusion 360 at that time. So that one I think was 4 or 5 different tries. And I at first I'm printing it just to get the dimensions right, printing it in PLA with a like I don't know 20% infill, just real low quality, real fast, just to see if my holes are lining up right, if the corner radiuses are right, and all that stuff. But I think it is getting better as I get more experience.
And
And
then
I'm far from there. Like I still have so much to learn. Every time I do a project, I'm like got to plan on hours of YouTube to try and figure out to do certain bits and pieces. And every time I do it, it seems like I forgot everything I learned the last time around. So
and most of these parts, what are you printing? Like, what are you using for your infill and your production final parts?
depends on what it is, but usually 40 to 60%.
You don't
I
very often
did
do 100%.
I did it for a motorcycle mount for a buddy. He had a little motorcycle computer that we put on his thing, and I tried that one at like 60%, and it kept breaking off with the vibration and the impact, and printed that one at 100%, and that one seems to be holding up.
Cool.
This is another project that was kind of fun. I found this table at a surplus sale at USU for like $20, and it was super heavy and old school built. And I thought that would be a good size for a snowboard waxing station, but it was too short. So I came home and threw some designs in Fusion 360 to get the board up to a height that would be good to work on, and cut that out and welded it up and bolted it. And now it works good as a snowboard ski wax station. And then this is my current work in progress. Pope and I are building ugly drum smokers. We had Dave Packham come up to DC 435 a few months ago and show off his ugly drum smoker, so we got all inspired and started making our own, and just finished this box last week. That's a firebox in the bottom. This will be like a heat baffle, and then like a middle and upper grate for putting the meat and stuff on. We're going to do the full heater meter with the servo damper and the fan driven, all that stuff. So yeah, that's
So
my journeys with
what things would you
3D.
recommend people that are just, I we talked to you because last time a bunch of people were like, oh, Fusion 360 is too hard or 3D design's too hard. What's your recommendation for someone who's just dipping their toe in, just getting used to it, just figuring out what they're doing?
I think the biggest thing for me is having something that I need to do, like finding a project that's interesting that you need to figure out, that you like something to solve. And so like if I have like, okay, I need an inlay for this dash, then I know I'm going to work on it and keep working on it till I figure it out. If you're just going into Fusion 360 just to, you know, I don't know, just mess around, then I get bored pretty quick. I won't click on all the bits unless I really have an end goal that I need to do. So look around for a project that's interesting, that like meets a need,
Go
and
buy a van.
then just yeah, buy a van. Um, yeah, just I don't know. For me, that's what works for me. Just having something that I know what I want, and then I'm not going to give up until I figure it out, even though it probably ends up being way more in time and material and stuff than if I would have just gone and bought something that would
Well,
work.
I think
It's
your
not as fun.
boys, I think the racks on your boy's car, like that says a lot. I think the fact that you saw that he had racks, he had roof racks, you wanted to make them work, and rather than go and buying a $300 bracket or a new set of racks or
Yeah,
whatever, you're like, how can we
yeah,
make this work and how can we make it pretty? And I think that mentality is key. And as I talk to different makers, that's a big part of it is. And like I said, it's not even always cheaper, but it just becomes a challenge and a personal driven thing of, well, I made this, now I want to make it look good and I want to make it work how I want. I want it to do what I want. And it's a combination of stubbornness and hard headed, I'm going to make it work, but also the I want it to work exactly what I want instead of what the engineer at the factory wanted. And it's a cool combination to see when they come together.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm sure we could buy a cheaper and easier smoker than what we're going to end up paying for this one when we're all said and done. But this is it's half the fun is building it and designing it and putting our little touches on it and stuff like that, I think.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here because I see the metal shop or whatever they call it in the bottom corner there.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the resources. A lot of people are going to watch this and say, I don't have a plasma cutter, I don't have a welder, I don't have this. So what are some of the resources you found, free and otherwise, connections and other things to help you so you don't have to buy everything?
Yeah, that's a good thing. So at USU, they have what's called a metal factory. It's a maker space that's available and open to staff and faculty and students, all students. And so that the cool thing there is there's you have to jump through their hoops with the training and safety bits, but you get your little certifications to run the different machines, and then it's basically open access. You can go in, work on whatever you want. They even have material there that they have a bunch of scrap that you're free to use whatever, but then they also have material you can purchase there. Like I bought the full 4 foot by 10 foot sheet of 10 gauge steel to build all these bits out of from them, and it was actually cheaper than running down to IPACO or Metal Mart or anything. The other thing that with metal stuff, particularly our metal shop up here, IPACO, they allow the public to just go back and root through their scrap piles or their scrap barrels, and if you can find scrap that's big enough to that'll do your project, they sell it by weight rather than by measurement, and it ends up being cheap. Like I most of the product, I think that this this project here, I did that out of scrap pieces that I pulled out of their barrel, and I think I was $11 in material. So $20 for the table, $11 for the steel, and I've got a bulletproof little wax table. So
That's awesome. And even like if if you're not loading, you don't have that, you're not faculty or staff. Like IPACA will cut things, and they won't do the full plasma for you, but they'll do a lot of things for you like that, right?
yeah, like if you can, and I think they actually do CNC plasma work down there. So if you can get your files right and send it to them, there's also a bunch of online stuff that like laser cutters and CNC stuff that if you get your files right, you can send off and get your parts. That might get expensive with shipping and stuff, but yeah, I am fortunate that I work for USU that has that metal factory available to us, and that I happen to have a buddy that owns a couple of plasma tables personally. So and I don't know how to get that connection.
So other things as people are dipping their toes, and we talked about design and finding something they're passionate about. What tool do you use the most, and what recommendation? So do you use this printer the most? Would it be more beneficial to get a printer, a laser cutter? Uh,
That's Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. Back when we first started doing the work, like we had a Taz Lulzbot 4 that was, a few $1,000s, all said and done. But I'm having better luck and a better experience with my upgraded $200 Creality Ender 3. That I put a Auto Z height on there, a glass bed with a PEI bed on the other side, and upgraded the controller board with and added a runout sensor, and like I seriously, that thing is giving me better prints and more consistent results and easier to use than I ever had with our big old Lowell spot. So I think a couple $100 plus some upgrades with a cheap 3D printer and go to town. I mean, and then see where that takes you. See if you like it and enjoy it, and go from there.
and honestly,
Another
if you
thing,
don't, there's always someone that'll buy it off you for pretty close to what
well,
you
and
paid
even
for it.
yeah, and even the like the little Cricut maker things, the little CNC vinyl cutters and stuff. Those things are awesome too. Like just start like doing your own designs, and that's basically all CNC work as well.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's an easy way to dip your toes into that vector graphic and the vector artwork you need for a lot of these. So yeah,
A lot less expensive than a laser cutter at this point, but that's also on the list one of these days. So,
any other
so
questions
yeah.
or comments from anyone on Discord or anything?
Oh, I got
Oh,
one tool that you need though, and I got a shout out to Josh Zevlag for his Secret Santa gift one year. He gave me a really nice caliber, Origin caliper tool. And if you're going to get into 3D printing or any of this stuff, a really nice caliper tool is awesome. And so, thanks, Josh. Even though you're not on here anymore, I use that thing pretty much whenever I'm on a project. I'm using that thing on the daily.
Those of us that are cheap and have the Harbor Freight caliper, how much of a difference does a nice caliper make?
I also have one of those, and I gotta admit, I like the Origin, but like functionally, no different. Like,
but it is easier, and there is benefit to the extra value. There is.
it's just really nice.
I,
I don't know that it's functionally it would make a difference, especially not for 3D printing, because your tolerances aren't like super crazy tight.
all right. Well, this is awesome. I love this. We love to have these hangouts where we talk with these show and tells, where we talk to people about different hobbies and different things they do, and this is a ton of fun. And I've talked to you about this a whole bunch offline and before this, that there is a ton of fun stuff going on with this and your van and everything you've done with this, and it's awesome that you shared it with us. Appreciate you spending some time going through this. Um, I'm going to go ahead and throw you under the bus and say don't hesitate to reach out on Discord if you have questions for Alan. He loves to talk about his van. He'll talk motos all day with you.
Yep.
And you get him excited and he'll go, and he's done some pretty cool stuff. It's been fun to watch him as this van. I kind of watched the process as he went from the van at surplus to the van as it is now, and it's fun to hear the adventures. It's fun to hear the cool project he's working on. There's always something new growing on it and something new happening to it. It's really fun, and he's put a ton of time, ton of energy, ton of love and passion into that, and it's fun to go on rides with him and to see the van. But thank you for sharing your time with us and to share some of these pictures of what you've done, and it's awesome. I hope it inspires people. If it does inspire you, if you come up with ideas and things you want to do on your own, we'd love to hear about your other stuff later for other show and tell. So please reach out to me, and we'd love to talk to you about it.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
All right. I'm jumping back to Discord for audio. Do you hear me? I don't hear you because you're still talking in Discord.